be properly active in the government in the state of Oklahoma, that you would be glorified, and that you would be pleased with what you see. And we thank you, Father, in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Flag's right here.
Attention to colors. Hand salute. Pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I don't know, most of you probably already know this, but I am the field coordinator for the John Birch Society for Oklahoma, North Texas, and Western Arkansas, and as well as an OCPAC member. And I have a letter here to the editor that was sent by one of our members. His name is Robert McKenzie, in Fort Smith, Arkansas. A letter to the editor sent a couple of weeks ago. Our chapter leader out there, Fred Coleman, saw this letter, and he said to me, "We need to go find this guy." I said, "Okay." So we went and found him, and we recruited him and his wife into the Birch Society that night. We found his address and drove over to his house and took the risk to knock on his door, and no shots were fired. So, but I want to, the Electoral College, okay, there is a huge push in this country, and has been for some time, but it's getting louder and louder and louder from the left, to abolish the Electoral College. Okay? Sounds like a really good deal. One man, one vote, my vote should count, my vote doesn't count if, you know, if you got the Electoral College, etc., etc. I just want to read this because it was so well done. These letters to the editor in this little paper over there have to be less than 300 words. This won't take long, okay? So just listen up if you would. I continue to be amazed at the liberal Democrats that will never accept Trump as our president, but especially at the still ongoing crying over the popular vote. So for all those that don't understand or respect the Electoral College election process, when Alexander Hamilton proposed the Electoral College as the President of the United States, he could not have been more correct. Think about what happened in the Trump election. Now listen to these numbers. This is what grabbed me. There are 3,141 counties in the United States. Trump won 3,084 of them. Clinton won 57. It gets better. Clinton won the popular vote by approximately 1.5 million votes. In the 5 counties that encompass New York City, Bronx, Brooklyn, Manhattan, Richmond, and Queens, Clinton received well over 2 million more votes than Trump. Clinton only won 4 of these counties. Trump won Richmond. Therefore, these 5 counties alone more than accounted for Clinton winning the popular vote of the entire country. These 5 counties comprise 319 square miles. The United States is comprised of 3,797,000 square miles. When you have a county that encompasses, a country that encompasses almost 4 million square miles of territory, it would be ludicrous to even suggest that the vote of those that encompass a mere 319 square miles should dictate the outcome of the national election. Thank you, Alexander Hamilton and the founding fathers of America, who gave us a republic based on law and not a democracy based on the popular vote. Without the Electoral College, smaller states would be ignored in the American election process. Now, what would it take to abolish the Electoral College? An amendment to the Constitution. There are 2 ways to amend the Constitution. Okay? One is through Congress, which is what all the amendments were done through. And the other one is a constitutional convention. Okay? We have an outstanding call right now in our state for a constitutional convention. Now, they say they can limit it, this and that. It's been argued back and forth all over the place. But once that thing is opened, do you not think that there's going to be a contingent of this, along with the people that want to rewrite the Second Amendment,
first of them.
Okay? You got to understand something. Walter Williams said that in this other article that I won't read. Walter Williams said the idea of abolishing the electoral college, it comes from people that hate this republic. They hate our Constitution. Okay? And if they get an opportunity to amend that document, and now, okay, since you've got all kinds of people out there pulling the lever right now, as Charlie Meadows said, you know, don't ever want to underestimate the stupidity of the voter. Okay? I would have to say ignorance because I'm trying to be a nice guy about it.
That's the way I actually put it.
Did you say that? I always thought you said stupidity. You see, you said ignorance, I heard stupidity. But the point of it is, how many sign-carrying crazies would be out there in the streets calling for the abolition of this if they thought they could do it? And think that they're doing the right thing?
Yeah, right.
Okay. Anyway, so that's my commentary. If you want a copy of this, I'm sure we can get it for you. Okay. We're going to ask Charlie to talk for 5 or 10 minutes here about the... oh, I'm sorry. We're going to have Bob Lynn, the president of OCPAC here. He's late.
Yes.
Step right up, Bob.
Right, we need to make Mike the new moderator.
No.
Great job. I'm going to have to watch the first part of the video. Yeah, my apologies for being late. I wasn't going to say anything about this today, but tomorrow we're having our inaugural OCPAC Legislative Committee meeting. It's the executive committee of our, these are men and women who are former legislators, current legislators, and other men like Steve Anderson. Is Steve here today?
No, he couldn't be here tonight.
Okay. Steve, our world-famous economist, and not a globalist. And so obviously, word of point, I've been talking to Rob Standridge, who was in my bad person list for a long time because he was a part of the Article 5 proactive people. But Rob Standridge does believe, as we do, that government education is the bane of American civilization. And so I asked Rob to be a part of it. He has just been explosive and dynamic in helping me plan this meeting tomorrow. So I was up late last night getting the agenda ready for the printer. And then before I came, I'm sometimes so late getting back from these meetings, I thought I need to email the agenda and the attendance roster to all our attendees. So I called Mike and said I might be late. Is it okay if I finish this project? So anyway, that's why I was late. But Mike, you did a great job. I'm going to watch the video. But we've asked Charlie, let me explain first. Bobby Cleveland had 2 doctor's appointments on other days other than today. At last minute got moved to today. And one is a cancer appointment for his wife. And I can't remember what Bobby's is, but they're both important appointments, and I can't remember why they were moved, but all along Bobby told me that Mike Reynolds is the guy that really should be speaking at this meeting. So when that came about, we're going to have Mike come and speak, and we're very pleased to have Mike here. But, yeah, thank you, Mike. But I wanted Charlie, if he would, he's so conversant about political affairs. Did we lose the house in Washington last night? I think we did. Yeah, I found that out through the Jerusalem news media. But,
We lost it a long time ago.
Oh, we lost it a long time ago. I think you're right. Charlie, give us about 5 minutes of your political analysis.
Okay. How many of you were shocked that U.S. Representative Steve Russell lost last night? Well, that's probably one that you're more interested in than almost anyone. Larry Stein, where are you? Did he slip out?
Just walked out.
Okay. We have with us State Representative Lewis Moore, actually won re-election. Larry Stein just stepped out. I don't know what's going on here with this mic. I'm going to try that one.
You're doing something. We can hear you. It's working.
To me, this one is better.
Okay, use that one.
So, anyway, Larry was running for county assessor, and this was an open seat. And Larry won. He's been a longtime assistant to Leonard Sullivan. He's a very knowledgeable person about the assessor's office. And he won by less than 1% victory. Butch Freeman, whether you like Butch or not, it's not my point here. Butch Freeman's been the county treasurer for many, many election cycles for a long time. And Butch Freeman won with 55%. I'm just saying, between an open seat and a long-time incumbent, well-known, do you see how Oklahoma County is shifting and is moving blue? Observers have known this for a while, but it really jumped forward this time. Now, take you back just about 2-3 weeks ago, we had Bill Shepard here with Senator Poland. And if you were here, you realize that Bill Shepard was angry at Steve Russell. He said, Steve Russell is going to win, but it's going to be a lot closer than it should be. He said, Steve can't raise money, and that's true. And, but if you watch Steve's ads and things, he would say, I'm just not going to get into the incivility of negative campaigning. And then he closes that ad by saying, America is worth fighting for. Well, Steve, I would like to see you fight for your seat a little bit more than what you did. And what happened there, a lot of people don't realize this. In the last week, a fellow by the name of Bloomberg out of New York put $500,000 into that race and ran some ads. And he did that in a few places very effectively when he felt like he caught a Republican U.S. representative sleeping and there was a possibility of switching that seat. Now, why do you think Bloomberg, what is Bloomberg's #1 issue?
No guns.
No guns. Does anybody in here know what Steve Russell has a business on the side? You know what he does? He manufactures guns. So I'm sure that this one was on his radar for a long time. Early on, Kendra Horn came out against Second Amendment issues, and then we quickly learned. Early on, she's been running for a year ago, July is when she started. And she realized what a political mistake that would be, so she stopped that kind of stuff. So why is Oklahoma changing? Oklahoma County. We have one of the most conservative large city newspapers in the United States here in this county. But people quit reading newspapers. And I want to tell you something. Oklahoma's television media, the local media, is becoming as bad as anything on the national scale. Most of what you see on news, particularly the early morning news in Oklahoma City, is not news. It is pop culture, millennial opinion program, is what it is.
Yes.
Ernie Schultz, one of the greatest newsmen of all time, from here in Oklahoma City, and became the head of the National Broadcasters Association, used to say, no opinions in news. Facts, deliver it, facts, factually, deliver it that way. Let the people make their own mind up. The last thing I want to do is watch some pop culture little millennial tell me about why something is really good or bad based on their feelings. And, you know, who their favorite rock stars are and stuff like that. So anyway, I won't get into that. But it's changing. And a lot of it has changed because of the MAPS programs. It's been very beneficial for the city. But it's moving this city into stacked and packed. That's your Agenda 21. Stack and pack them higher. And what's happening is we've become a very attractive community. We're becoming like a large metropolitan city, like you'd see on the east and the west coast and places like that. These are magnets for liberals. And so we have many young people living in Oklahoma City now. And in addition to that, a lot of our growth, the two places that are growing, the #1 growth spot in the state of Oklahoma is Oklahoma City metropolitan area. #2 is Tulsa. And a lot of that growth has is because of relocation of businesses from other places to here. For example, Boeing, 500 engineers. Where'd they come from? California. Well, a lot of times when you bring people in, you know, there was a book written, How Money Walks. And this book was showing that businesses are relocating in areas that are low taxes. And the speaker, the author of that book was here a couple of years ago speaking at an OCPA event that I attended. And I asked him publicly, I said, well, we understand that, you know, the business world succeeds where lower taxes are, business taxes, and less regulations and all, but they bring a lot of employees with them. Do those employees realize why those businesses had to leave? And he said, unfortunately, they don't. So a lot of implants that are coming in here. And then overall, I would just say this. We dodged a bullet. Thank goodness to the U.S. Supreme Court hearings that activated people and made many people realize how evil the Democrats were and the U.S. Senate. It activated people and it made a difference in some Senate seats out there. But folks, I'm going to tell you, immigration is a huge issue because America's changing because of too much both legal and illegal immigration.
Amen, Charlie.
You know, a number of years ago, Eagle Forum published the results of some polling, and this polling was asking people that had immigrated here to the United States, legal immigrants here, about certain perspective on government. And the vast majority of them felt like it was the responsibility of government to care for their people. That's called socialism. And I've written about this and I took a lot of heat on it. Many immigrants, even illegal immigrants, are nice people. They make good neighbors. They're hard workers. But they don't make good citizens. They don't understand our Constitution. They don't understand what made America great. They're not bad people necessarily, but you give them the right to vote, and they're not going to vote with the constitutionalists for the most part. Some do, but not all. Anytime you talk about groups of people, you're always talking about you know, averages. One last thing here. I thought I'd go through the 9 statewide races that were on the ballot last night. And thought I'd rank them as far as who got the most votes of anyone. Who do you think got the most votes of any Republican in the statewide race last night?
Cindy Bird.
It was Cindy Bird. She was number 1. Rainey McDaniel, our state treasurer, was number 2. Number 3 was Attorney General Mike Hunter. Number 4 was Glenn Mulready. Number 5 was Lieutenant Governor Matt Pinnell. Number 6 was Labor Commissioner, I hate to say this, Leslie Osborne. Number 7 was Corporation Commissioner Bob Anthony. Number 8 was Joy Hoffmeister. I'm glad to see that she was so low. I wish she had been a lot lower. And number 9, the person that got the least amount of votes, statewide office, was Kevin Stitt. Not even close to any of the rest of them. By far the least. I'm going to close by saying this, that had Kevin Stitt lost and Drew Edmondson won that position, you would have seen what I call the total takeover of state government by the education industry, the teachers.
Yes.
They now own and control the state legislature. And thank God that Kevin wasn't elected. As I said here last week when I was doing my thank God that Kevin was elected. As I said here last week, there's some things that Kevin will be very good for the state of Oklahoma on. But there's an area that, because of his naivete, he could do a lot of damage. That area is education. If he doesn't wise up, and really understand what's going on, then he could do a lot of harm to his future in the state of Oklahoma. The Republicans gained 2 seats in the House, believe it or not. I'm not sure what they did in the Senate. We did pick up at least 1 seat down in Lawton. But that doesn't mean much. Numbers are numbers. It's the composition of what the person stands for. And in the primaries this year, primary runoffs, was a massacre of the conservatives. And so there's a few left. Denise Hayter won, and I think Denise will be a solid conservative when she's in there. But it was a tough deal. America shifted, primarily because of immigration, and the other point is our educational system. Our educational system is not educating children, it is indoctrinating children, it is making leftists out of children, and those are the, unfortunately, and folks, they don't turn into leftists when they get to college. Many of them are already prepared. It just accelerates when they get to college. So anyway, Bob, I think I'm done. You want me to introduce Mike, or you want to? Okay.
Yeah, fantastic. Talking about socialism, I just saw this morning in the news that I think it was Michael Moore. Is he the comedian, actor?
No, he's a producer.
Are
you talking about the film producer, Michael Moore?
Maybe he does do that as well. He got a meeting, somehow he got a meeting with the Pope and asked the Pope if he thought it was immoral and sinful for capitalist governments to be capitalist governments. And the Pope said, absolutely. And that is sinful. And as I'm thinking, as they're talking about this, I'm thinking, yeah, the government that keeps people poor is socialism. And if you're not poor before it arrives, you will be poor when it does arrive. It'll be only a few wealthy people. But that's the kind of mindset that our high school kids are getting, and of course universities just build on that. So tomorrow at our legislative meeting, we are going to craft plans to exercise, especially through social media, a statewide social media campaign and other things. And I hope all of you in this room will help us be involved in that, but to begin to fight back against the reigning paradigm that's going on in our state today. So with that, Mike Reynolds, I think Mike gets an A+ for knowing not only where all the bodies are buried in the Capitol, but every nook and cranny. And so I'm Mike, it's just a privilege to have you here today, and we're looking forward to, speaking of socialism, I think those are the guys that may be leading our party in the House, but we'll let you talk about that.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind introduction. Okay, don't hold back. Hard to change my nature now.
Do you want that on the stand?
Pardon?
You want that in the stand?
Yes, I do, as a matter of fact. I keep my hands free.
I think I'm sure don't turn it off. Joseph, do you know how to type in this? Or maybe that was...
I got it. I'm sure you can hear me. You can hear me without a microphone.
We've got 2 chairs right here. If any of you guys want to walk around the back.
Before I get started, just real quick, there's some radio shows that I don't listen to at all because I almost vomit when I accidentally flip over to them. And so I think we're getting a new radio show started in Oklahoma that might appeal more to this group. And Todd Tucker will be a part of that. I give you 15 seconds for your pitch.
15 seconds is all I get?
30. Well, 15, but everybody doubles it, so.
Does anybody remember Ronald Reagan saying socialism is great? No. Until you run out of other people's money. Wants me to stand up, thank you. Ronald Reagan did say socialism is great until you run out of other people's money, which is very, very true, and I believe socialists are trying to take over our party, especially here in Oklahoma. And so I've literally fallen on the sword and spent 4 months out of work because I was cut from my previous station because I was too conservative. believe it or not. And there are some Republican political operatives that were involved in that. Republican, I use in quotation marks. I prefer to say I'm conservative now. But we've got a station, 1640, it's out of Enid. Our studios are in Oklahoma City, but it's called The Eagle. You can pick it up online. There's some signal issues in parts of the metro. That'll be fixed within time, and as the station grows, and with your help we can make it grow. But I'm on every morning from 6 to 10. And if you don't have a problem with hearing liberals being insulted every day, you'll like listening to the show, because that's what I do best, is insult liberals and put them in their place. So I appreciate, Mike, you giving me the opportunity to introduce myself, and I hope to meet all of you, and hope you'll be listeners and fans of the show, and make sure you spread the word. 1640 The Eagle. Thank you all.
I was told this microphone's clear. It may get overloaded with me, but thanks, Todd. Appreciate it. Look forward to hearing your show. Housekeeping out of the way. Everything I say today is to the best of my belief. We've got that recorded. Whether it's factual or not, you can figure that out. I try to deal with the facts. But if some sleazebag wants to sue me for slander, I'm speaking my opinion, except for the few times that I say this isn't my opinion. Bobby was supposed to be here, and he's got some circumstances going on in his life. And I ran for another office after I left the legislature, still suffering over that. But I had other circumstances to deal with in my life. My daughter's divorced from a man that had been physically assaulting her for years. And I wouldn't have known, and I wouldn't have had time to honor the office that I would have been elected to. And so Bobby's now dealing with cancer with his wife. And he may not have time to deal with the office he would have been elected to. So it may have been just God ordained for what happened. I mean, I believe God ordains everything, so it's not hard to believe. I get kind of random, just throw out my thoughts. But when did all this election cycle start, and what's happened to the massacre of Republicans in the House of Representatives? I think it started, I'm not blaming him at all, I think it started with Senator Coburn. When he came up to the Capitol and indicated that he was going to help organize a group that was going to be against the tax increase and the massive. But Senator Coburn wasn't an active part of that. He did given his name to start it, and the people that did it were well-meaning, but I believe they were inexperienced when it came to running such a large campaign, and that fell apart. And I'm afraid that empowered the other side mightily. Because used to be, if you had Senator Coburn on your side, people were terrified. And that, unfortunately, appears to have ended. And I'm saddened by that. I first got involved, actually, the day that happened. After the meeting, Mike Ritz was out in the rotunda of the Capitol, and a guy that calls himself a Republican, West, I don't even know his first name, and I don't care to know his first name, accosted Representative Ritz in the rotunda. Said, "You think you're going to take me out of office? Who do you think you are?" Screaming at him, to the point that Highway Patrol came over because they came concerned that the man was going to attack Representative Ritz. And so Mike hadn't even been in Senator Coburn's meeting. He hadn't said anything about taking other people out of office. That was just a sham from someone that he would far better serve the Democratic Party, and maybe with the ideals of Maxine Waters, than he serves the Republican Party from Grove, Oklahoma. And he needs to go, but he's not going to go anytime soon. Way too much power is behind him now, because he's out of control. So that's kind of when it started, as far as I'm concerned. A lot of other things happened, and I was asked today to talk basically about the massacre and the other things going on. there was a lot of things happening there, but most conservatives got elected because they were conservative. And they actually ran on the platform. Once they got elected, they did what they said they were going to do. It's astounding how many people go up there and campaign on something and do nothing that they say they're going to do. And then later on, all their voters think they did what they said they were going to do. They don't pay attention to their record or anything. They just think their life is fine, and then they'll find out in 20 or 30 years their life isn't so fine because that guy was lying through his teeth to them. But that's what happened. Now, I was given 30 minutes, and I said, I'm going to speak about 10, because that's what I was used to in the House. They cut me off at 10. And then I'm going to open it up for questions. So I'm just going to give you some background, and then the questions I think will cover most of it. But I started helping Mike, and they started accusing him of stolen valor. And what is that? What is that? In 1986, Mike Ritz was given an honorary membership to the Purple Heart Society, or I don't know the actual name of it, by the chapter in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, because of his free service medical work for individuals, for veterans. And so they honored Mike by giving him an honorary membership. Fast forward to 2017, when the national director says, we don't have any such thing as honorary memberships. Now in 1986, and someone gave you that, has anybody ever gotten honored and you try to find out if the people that gave you the honor really had the authority to do that? I don't think so. I don't think so. I haven't. And that's what Mike Ritz's campaign became about. Anyway, that's what his campaign, and he was attacked unmercifully about that. So, and we didn't think it would hurt, but it did. Obviously it did. And we should have, maybe we shouldn't have seen. That was just foretelling of what was going to happen to other conservatives and the lies they're told. I recall that during that time, people would say, they can't say that. I didn't do that. I didn't do this. I said, they can say anything they want. They can say anything they want. And you're going to waste all your time trying to disprove it. My brother was the author of the bill that limited property tax increases. He was the Senate author of that bill. One of his opponents put out material that my brother was against capping property tax increases. He was the author of the bill, ran it. They don't care. And unfortunately, the campaign consultants of the Republican Party now don't care either. They will tell any lie. They will say anything. Fount Holland, Trevor Worthen, and the others that go along with them will say anything to pad their pockets. They have no principles. They have no morals, in my opinion.
Mine too. Is that your opinion, Mike?
That's my opinion.
It's our opinion, too.
As I saw what was going on, John Eccles has been a tremendous disappointment to me.
Amen.
Tremendous. John, up until yesterday, John lost the only election he'd ever been in. Anybody know that but me? He ran against me in 2006, I believe it was, because he was recruited, and Larry Nichols and Aubrey McClendon and the Love family. I never buy gas. That's Bob Daney sitting over there. When we drive someplace, he'll pull into a Love station. I said, Bob, I don't want to go there. He said, when you start paying for the gas, you can decide where we go. I do go to the Love station quite often to use their urinal. That's about all it's good for. And that's fact. That's my wife. So, I'm not meant to be a comedian, but I can do okay sometimes. So Mike started receiving these pieces on this stolen valor stuff. And it was costing some bucks. And it was put out by, paid for, I believe, by the Conservative Political Action Committee. So we started doing some research. And Mike talked with the Chief of Staff of the Speaker of the House of the Ohio Legislature. And he said, we've run them out of Ohio. They're being sued. It's a rogue organization, and they've been lying, and they've been funding stuff, and they haven't been properly reporting it, and we've run them out. Well, the guy comes to Oklahoma, comes to Tulsa, Oklahoma. I can't tell you his name right now. I believe it's Evergreen, Everhard, something like that. I don't care. It's not worth me trying to do the research to find out who he is. And it appeared that he had gone to work for an organization that was doing economic development. You know, Tulsa's jealous of Oklahoma City's MAPS projects. Well, they didn't have our MAPS projects, I don't care. But this guy apparently came to work for an organization that appears was funded by George Kaiser, so you can kind of see where he's going, the conservative political action lines. I don't really know if Kaiser is behind that, but it does appear that certain House leaders are behind that, and I don't want to get ahead of myself. So I think ultimately Mike had radio ads run against him, certainly 4 or 5 pieces of mail by this group. But before they did all that, I actually went to the Ethics Commission, because I looked on the internet, couldn't find them registered with the state of Oklahoma. And since I couldn't find them, I filed a complaint against them. That complaint's gone nowhere. They don't give anybody any feedback on their complaints. I'm quite aware, I've talked to other people that have filed a complaint against the same organization. And so it's out of control. We might as well abolish the Oklahoma Ethics Commission. They are a total 100% waste of time. Several years ago, I was able to ban pack-to-pack contributions. First state in the nation, because big guys give money, 5,000 to this pack and 5,000 to that one, and then when it gets down to the end, they find out who needs the money, and one pack will transfer money to the other pack so that they can, because they're already maxed out with a candidate. And now what we've got, we need to give apologies to Gene Stipe and Stephen Phipps because they participated in straw donors, and now the ultimate straw donors are the members of the Oklahoma legislature, because the Ethics Commission now lets them transfer money from their campaign accounts to other candidates. It's insanity. And the Oklahoma Ethics Commission is the ones that passed those rules. So they're as worthless as you can possibly get. They're a constitutional body. Let's just defund them, have an executive director, and she can sit out there and do whatever she wants to do. So we discovered the Conservative Alliance PAC, and then we found out they were participating in many other races. They were going after all of the, I forgot what do you call them, Paul? The group that meets, Ritz and Dunlap and the Liberty Caucus or something. Okay. They were going after all of them. George Fountain, Muskogee, Travis Dunlap, Sean Roberts, all of them. And they were very successful. John Bennett didn't run for re-election. So anyway, so they were going against all these people with dark money. Nobody knew who this Conservative Alliance PAC was. Well, in the last couple of weeks, let me back up a little further. So I looked at that, and John Eccles and I have had a grudging relationship. If you saw us talking, you'd think it was wonderful. But John never speaks what he thinks. He's the master at, when you go away, he said absolutely nothing, and you thought you just had a real good conversation. When you analyze it later, what did we say? What did he say? So I called him up, and this is the first he's going to hear of it, and he'll probably hear of it. I called him up and I said, John, I don't know anything to do but be straight with you. And if anybody knows me, that's pretty much how I am. And so I'd like to meet with you. I'm concerned about something going on in the House of Representatives. John said, okay. So we met at Panera Bread on Southwest 104th and Penn. Spent about 45 minutes, I think. And I said, John, Chris Canby, the man that replaced me in my House seat, it appears that he is giving money to, it doesn't appear, it was on the ethics board, he's giving money to candidates against incumbents. That's unheard of. First of all, it was unheard of, it's simple. Sometimes we make overstatements. It was unheard of because before you couldn't give money to other incumbents, and now you could. But it was just unbelievable. Now, I have to say, I did a lot of work against, thankfully I've forgotten her name, the person that Bob Daney ran against. And and I was a sitting representative and she was a sitting rep. But this guy's just doling out checks. So I said, John, it looks to me there's only one of three possibilities. Either A, you and the speaker have absolutely no clue what's going on. Or B, you see what's going on and you're alarmed by it. Or C, you see what's going on and you're embracing it. I can't think of any other three possibilities. And he said, well, you're right, Mike, and it's B. B being, we see what's going on and it's alarmed by it. I said, okay, well, great. So we began discussing it, and he said, yeah, Chris Kennedy told me he wanted to be the Gene Stipe of the House. He doesn't want to be the Speaker of the House, he just wants to run the House. And so he wants to put in place either Wallace or Caldwell as the Speaker, and then he'll control it. And I said, well, it appears to me that your only salvation will be then from the Liberty Caucus, because all those guys would support you over that all day long. And so he goes, well, yeah, I think you're right. I said, well, you know, they're not getting any money, they're not raising any money. And what can we do? John said. I said, oh, come on, John, what can you do? Y'all can raise money. He said, no, I can't. I said, John, don't tell me that. The Speaker can pick up the phone and tell anybody he wants to send $5,000 here and $5,000 there, because they're going to... He said, well, yeah, you're right about that. I said, well, then I suggest that's probably what you ought to get with. He said, yeah, I'll put a call into the Speaker. Now, I'm going on vacation, and we're going to be out of town for about 2 weeks, but I'll put a call in the Speaker, and we'll start doing that. I tell you how much money showed up. I think nothing. Nothing. So, I mean, you know, call me stupid. I think they probably didn't do what John indicated they were going to do. So while I believe there were only three possibilities at the time, I think a fourth possibility came along. The fourth possibility is, instead of fighting it, why don't we just see what candidate really wants and just work with him? We'll keep our positions of power. I can run for governor someday, or John Eccles, or Tom Cole's seat when he's gone, or whatever. That's just my opinion. I can't read John's mind, but you know, he's had aspirations since he was in kindergarten. His parents always thought he was going to be governor, U.S. senator, or something. And I'll do everything I can to see that never happens. John, if you didn't know by now. So anyway, so instead of, if he really was concerned then, I believe the concern went away and they all decided to work together. Now, let's change to stolen OU art. For some reason, because of the guy in Tulsa, it appeared Kaiser was funding him, and I hadn't seen all the activity, we thought, maybe Kaiser is behind some of this. I think he probably was anyway. Maybe he's behind it because of the stolen art. And Mike Ritz was, after I chaired the committee, and then Paul chaired the committee, and Mike kind of took up the banner to force OU to return that art. And Kaiser wasn't for that. And I learned from a very reliable source that another very wealthy billionaire in Oklahoma may have the largest stash of stolen Nazi art of any person in the United States. And it appears that that person may have wanted to donate the art to OU in much the same manner as, what's the guy's name? Weisenhofer did. So I kind of, in my mind, thought maybe that's what's going on. That was before I learned about what I'm about to tell you. So that may have been part of it, may not have ever entered into the picture. Anyway, it's now apparent, so I'm going to wind this up and just open it for questions. It's now apparent, based on what little information you can glean out of campaign finance reports here and there, that it appears that there's a concerted effort to modify tort reform. And what better way to do that than to hire a bunch of useful idiots? And if the teachers want to say I call them useful idiots, they can say that. Hire a bunch of useful idiots, come to the legislature, and fund education raises while the attorneys are the real people. I disagree with Charlie on what's happening. The attorneys are the real people that now control the Oklahoma State House of Representatives.
Yes.
So, with that being said, I'll try to answer any questions I can as best I can. So, Charlie.
I'll just say this, that when the Democrats were in control, the attorneys and the teachers worked together for the control. So they come from very much the same.
That may be muted.
Joseph, you mentioned something. Push the button. Push the button.
ON/OFF switch.
Yeah, I was just going to say that when the Democrats were in control, it was a combination of the attorneys, the trial lawyers primarily, and the teachers. And so, anyway, they're very much kindred spirit for the most part. My question to you is this: you mentioned the fact that when Bob Danny was running, you contributed money to Bob against.
No, I knocked doors for 5 months.
Okay, well, you contributed to him. Okay, I was just going to ask you if that was out of your personal checking account or if that was campaign account versus Kennedy. Is that out of his personal account or is that out of his campaign account?
Campaign account.
Okay, that's what I.
God forbid they use their personal money.
Yeah.
And he's raised hundreds of thousands of dollars in his personal account. I was encouraged last night.
Where does a lot of that money come from, do you think, Mike?
Attorneys. I mean, he and John had signs out in front of Mike Vorey's office, hardcore Democrat attorney in South Oklahoma City, whose office I go by every day. And and Chris, to his credit, I mean, birds of a feather, right, works for what I consider the sleaziest attorney in the state of Oklahoma, Jerry Foshee. And he's worked for him ever since he moved back from his job in Washington, D.C. after trying to embarrass the United States and lobbying Congress for getting more attorney fees for Gitmo detainees. I mean, what in the world is all that about? So, anyway.
Well, last spring, I made a declaration at an OCPAC meeting that John Eccles is an absolute fraud when it comes to conservatism.
100%.
Anybody else? Let me give you the mic here.
Why didn't you tell us who the billionaire is that has the stolen arm?
I did. Oh, no. No, I didn't. No, I'm not going to do that. I might tell you later, but
the initials?
No. But if you're smart, you can figure it out.
No opinions on this, Mike?
Well, and I haven't seen it. I've just been told that by very knowledgeable people.
Jim Martin, can you tell us the difference between a socialist and a communist?
You sound like Richard Engel. I think a communist doesn't believe in God. A socialist, I don't know what they believe in.
Communism.
Yeah, power. Thank you. Yeah. Someone ask questions because or if you're bored, hey, I can quit 10 minutes early. Paul.
Just kind of a statement. I don't know how potent...
You don't get to do that. You got to end it with a question.
I know.
Okay.
I don't know how potent the GOP state convention is, but my question is, the next time we have a state convention, are there going to be flyers on the seat that inform the people about this takeover of taking out the conservatives? Are we going to inform the grassroots what is taking place, or is it just going to be among us people that are informed?
Well, Paul, as you know, the state conventions have, people spend a lot of time getting together and trying to say, we want this in the platform and that in the platform. It doesn't matter. After the platform is generated, nobody pays attention to it. So you've got to see who you're voting for and make sure that they're in agreement with your platform or work against them. The state...
I guess my question is there going to be a concerted effort to take out people like Chris Candiday and inform the grassroots of what's going on?
If you've got the money, that's the problem. I'm informing now, and hopefully it'll inflame a few people and they'll do something. But these guys operate off the billions of dollars they get from government, and it makes it difficult for us to operate because we don't get any money from government. We don't want any money from government. So the playing field is so uneven, they just have to be exposed, and then we have to hope the voters see through it.
Mike, that's similar to what I wanted to ask, what Paul just said.
we surely, without money, even though we have some money too, but hard to compete against their money, can do what they did with Senator Yen and single him out and start with one, even if we can't do 5 at a time.
John Eccles,
that's kind of where I'm coming from. And we've got to do that. I mean, it's kind of a question. I wanted to know what our state plan should be.
That's a great one.
But we've got to do that. No matter what it takes, we've got to do that.
That's how we do it, is we've got to pick 1 or 2 and expose them and teach them a lesson. And the leaders. There are, someone here probably knows the numbers better than me. I believe there's going to be over 50 freshmen. Over 50 freshmen and something like 20 or 25 sophomores. That means there's 25 people that have any sort of clue that's what's going on, and 15 of them don't have a clue because they never had a clue. And so there's about 10 people that are going to run the state of Oklahoma, and hopefully they won't bend Kevin Stitt's ear. He will realize, he will somehow, some way, some conservatives will be able to get and visit with him before they set an agenda that wipes out Oklahoma.
This is more of a federal topic than the state topic. I think tomorrow when you have your executive meeting...
I'm not having an executive meeting.
Well, you're not going to be in there then? I thought you said a lot of the old-time plank holders for OCPAC are having a meeting.
I didn't say that.
Okay, well, I think we should start looking into a replacement for Kendra Horn. Find somebody now.
No, you're going to have to look in. How are you going to take her out when she's a Democrat's hero? We got to look at replacing. She's a known quantity. We know what she is. We have to replace people that say they're one thing and are something entirely. Chris Kennedy sat in the Speaker's chair of the House of Representatives. Travis Dunlap had a bill they brought up, and they needed one tiny amendment on the bill. I don't even know what it was. And Kennedy then, he says he's pro-life. I got his flyers last week. He's pro-everything, whatever he wants to say. And he sat in that chair, and if you know what it takes to do an amendment, they only need a majority of the number of people voting to pass an amendment. On bills, it takes 51 to pass a bill. So what happens is they start doing amendments, and usually they wait 2 or 3 minutes, and they let everybody vote, and the vote might be 50 to 30. They don't wait for 100, you know, it's obvious it's going to pass. They wait till it's 50 to 30. I believe that amendment got and the guys that are against stuff always put their votes up immediately, as if they're going to influence everybody else. So they put up like 25, 30 no votes immediately, and the other guys that were for Travis's amendment started putting their buttons, and Kennedy declared the vote with like 40 votes. Killed that pro-life legislation just like that. And then I watched him sit in the chair for 3 hours while they drove, I forget his name, John Innes, back from Enid to get the 68th vote for the budget bill. Sat there for 3 hours while the Highway Patrol, I think it was the Highway Patrol, went to Enid to bring Innes back to give them the 68th vote. But he couldn't give them 30 seconds to get the votes to pass that pro-life bill. So.
Wow. Mike, I got a question. I'm Jerome back here in the back. You said something a while ago about they don't read the platform. The Republicans don't read the platform. Let that be a lesson, or let's use that or something like that to say, why, in goodness sake, have a convention of the states and rewrite the Constitution?
Jerome, I don't want to go there. I am for the Article 5 convention, so I'm not going to agree with you on that, and that's not the subject today. Okay. I'm telling you that we spend so much time and effort crafting a platform that's multi-pages long, and they don't pay any attention to it anyway. You've got to be going after the individuals, individuals in leadership that are misbehaving, and get them, because that's the only, we're going to have to be very targeted if we're going to have any success, and we got to start pretty soon. Anybody else?
More questions?
I'm here.
Let me bring you the mic.
Well, you don't have to.
Oh, you want to make sure everybody... make sure everybody hears it.
I'm here as a guest with Kidlet today. I'm actually from Kansas, and I wasn't even expecting to be here today, so I'm a little stored by this. But I want you folks to understand something. We lost our governor yesterday, and it was all of the funding was done through the teachers union. And the establishment Republicans, Graves, Hayden, guys who were previous governors, endorsed her. If you don't see the slippery slope here, you're going to get caught up in it too, because we're pissed off. And that's all I got to say.
Well, and you're right. I mean, the teachers are the biggest useful union to them right now. They've all re-registered as Republicans because when they couldn't beat the Republican Party, we'll just take over the Republican Party. And the church members sit at home.
Just to hitchhike on what he said, in Logan County and Payne County, our district attorney is Republican Laura Thomas. The Democrat from Stillwater, what was his name? Forget it right now. Corey Williams was her opponent. Chris Steele, former Speaker, Republican Speaker of the House, and two other prominent Republicans all endorsed the Democrat in that, and they sent out a postcard. Now, I don't know how that election came out yet, but I'm just saying, when you have liberal Republicans in there, they can switch in a heartbeat, just like what you're saying.
And Chris Steele was one of the greatest at faking you out. He got me big time, there's no doubt.
Me too.
And Corey Williams was one of 3 people that voted. So Mr. Chris Steele, pastor in a church, Mr. Chris Steele endorsed Corey Williams, according to Charlie. I didn't know that. Corey Williams was one of 3 people, as I recall, that voted against putting the 10 Commandments monument at the state capitol. But they said, Corey, you're not going to get reelected. So after having his red vote on the board, he punched his button off and left the chamber. That's a fact. That's one of the things I'll say is a fact. And Chris Steele knew that. So,
One thing about what Paul was saying regarding Kendra Horn, how to get rid of her. And, you know, obviously we'd like to do that in 2 years. But one of the things that needs to be done in 2000, that is census. By 2002, the state will be, or 2022, excuse me, this state will be redistricted. And one of the things we need to do is have Tom Cole, who has a little notch around Tinker. He needs to come in and capture a little more.
Around Tinker, so that he can say he's taking care of Tinker.
Let him capture a little bit. Frank Lucas used to come right through the center of Oklahoma City. He needs to come back here and grab some of that. Maybe even Mark Wayne Mullen needs to come up and catch a little bit.
Maybe Mark Wayne Mullen needs to leave like he said he was going to.
But I'm just saying, you cannot leave this county as a whole unit in the 5th district. It needs to be split up. And so you pull some of that out of there. Put Logan County. That is a very reliable conservative county. I don't have to look at Canadian County, but bring Canadian and Logan back into that 5th district, and you'll see a different outcome by 2022.
Well, let me just wind it up with one additional thought. Most people here probably know what Cleveland County looks like. It's a triangle, and so it up like this, way down like that. And I-44 is over here on the side of the triangle. So in redistricting, 8 years ago, I had the opportunity, because they let the representatives kind of say, well, hey, your district has to lose population or gain population or whatever. I had the opportunity to participate in that. And so I wanted, there's that little corner of Cleveland County on the west side of I-44. Goes over the County Line Road, it's about 5 miles. And there was a lot of growth in there, new houses, and it was very contiguous with my district. So I wanted to lose some of the south part of my area and just gain that little triangle. So it'd be right there. And I looked, and I mean, we make bad decisions sometimes. And so I started looking at that, and I found out that John Eccles had just moved over in that district. And I said, John, I see that you've moved over in this area. He said, yeah. I said, I just want to know if you want to run for office. Oh, Mike, I'm never going to run for office again against you. I'm going to wait till you're gone. And I said, well, yeah, I mean, you've conveyed that to me. I I'm just trying to find out, are you ready to run now? He said, oh, yeah, sure. But not until you're gone. You think about leaving? I said, no, but we're doing redistricting. And I was going to draw your area into my district and for redistricting. But if I leave it alone, then you will be in Charles Key's old district. And Charles is leaving. And you could run, he said, oh, if we did that, I'd go file for office tomorrow. So it's my fault that Chris Canada and John Eccles aren't in the same stinking district, and I apologize to y'all publicly today.
Yeah, Mike, thank you. That was fantastic. I appreciate you coming. Before we close in prayer, I just want to say that, Susan, are you going to be there or at the table?
I'll go over there.
Okay, so we have a fabulous book table now set up. And Mike, are you going to be at the table to tell people how much they have to pay to get any of that material?
Susan already knows.
Susan knows. Okay. So Susan will be back at the book. Susan, you're welcome to just go ahead back there now if you would like. And we have a number of selections that I think are our top selections. And then, of course, again, as always, if you are not currently a member of OCPAC, you have two choices before you leave this room. We have decided, I think, is this not correct, Charlie, Susan, that if you register today for OCPAC, it covers you through next year as well? Okay. But you just can't leave the room without doing that, or your other option, since we're at the gun range. Only joking for those snowflakes who watch and don't understand the difference between jokes and serious,
Pretty bad, you gotta explain it.
or don't like jokes.
They are a joke.
Before Mike prays, I just have to say one thing, two things. One, next week, Stephen Black, who many of you know, a former homosexual, has a national ministry leading people trapped in that lifestyle back into normalcy. Will be here to speak. And as Mike mentioned, the complacency in the church and the complicity many times of supporting evil causes. And I think you may already know that the Southern Baptist Convention has weakened some on this LGBT issue. And some. And the Presbyterian Church in America, as you know, Dr. D. James Kennedy founded that denomination. I helped plant one of those churches in Norman. But in St. Louis, in a PCA church, they held a large convention endorsing people who were LGBT. And Stephen Black, our speaker next week, registered to go to that conference, and they sent his registration back because they didn't want the likes of him in that conference. And he'll tell you a little bit about that. And he does have, I spoke with Steve, he wasn't the only plant there. There were others on our side who were there who will tell you exactly what was said and what went on in that conference at that PCA church in St. Louis, Missouri. And that's a travesty. And when God created our forefather, Adam, we're all the grandchildren of Adam, he looked him eyeball to eyeball and he said, "In you I place my image. Your job is to replicate my image and spread that over the face of the planet and exercise dominion in my name." You find that in Genesis chapter 1. And because we don't know that, we're uninvolved in politics. We think God is our sugar daddy who came to make us feel good while we're on the earth and then give us an eternal, all-expense-paid vacation forevermore. And that is not the deal. The Lord Jesus Christ died and shed his blood not only to forgive our sins, to transform us, but so that we would qualify to be back in his service to do what God originally created us for, and that's to spread his glory over the earth. As promised to Abraham, as all the nations on the earth would be blessed through Abraham and his seed, and that seed is Christ and his people. And so we look forward to that day when every knee will bow and every tongue confess that Jesus is Lord, and it is on that that Western civilization was built. And until we reestablish that, we will not be taking Western civilization any further. And with that, Mike, would you close us in prayer?
Amen. Heavenly Father, we do thank you for this time today. Lord, we thank you when we hear the things that are going on in mainline denominations in the churches. We see the apostasy, Lord. We see the abandonment of our duty as Christians. It amazes me, Lord, that you still have mercy on us. Lord, I continue to ask for your mercy on this country, and I ask you, Lord, to please wake up your church. Lord, please send your Spirit, wake up your church to be active. We just thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. See you next week.
Yeah, how's it going, man? I just got a statement